Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Waters, along with Judge Jeanine Pirro, Harold Ford Jr., Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Just moments from now, President Biden about to face another critical test. Reassure world leaders that his brain's fine. And then he's up to the job as he addresses NATO's 75th anniversary summit. And while we wait for that, it's a full-blown Democrat dumpster fire. President Biden trying to fend off a mutiny as congressional Democrats hold 2 secret crisis meetings on Capitol Hill over what to do about Old Yeller. The big guy's been working the phones, making it clear he's not going anywhere. But Joe's hostage negotiations are just splitting the caucus. Democrats are coming out of those meetings saying there's no agreement yet on Biden's future, only heartache. Axios reports on a group of swing district Democrats who held what sources described as a despondent gathering with actual tears, but not for Biden, for their own hides. And one anonymous Democrat lawmaker told Punchbowl News that the meeting felt like a funeral. Check out how unified the party is.
Are you all on the same page?
No.
What do you mean you're not on the same page?
They're not even in the same book.
Joe Biden all the way.
Yes.
Joe Biden.
He just has to step down because he can't win.
Are you worried about his cognitive ability?
No, I'm not. I've been with him in the last few weeks.
Do you have any concerns about President Biden being on the ticket?
Of course I do.
We are riding with Biden.
I'm hearing discussions and legitimate questions about the president, and I continue to listen.
Senator Warren, do you have concerns about Biden? Do you support Biden?
I'm up in finance.
There's one person in this country that's kicked Trump in 2020, and that's why my money is now in 2024.
And after getting skipped over yesterday, the Deuce got a crack at the binder over Biden's health.
Does President Biden commit to serving a full second term if reelected?
Yes.
Why doesn't anybody in the president's family urge him just to go to get checked out to say the coast is clear?
The White House medical unit, his doctor, they don't believe that he needs anything more than what we have been able to provide. A full, detailed, very comprehensive physical that he had 4 months ago. It is their decision to make. It's not yours, it's not mine. It's the White House medical unit.
Are you sure that a handful of events is giving him a representative view of swing state voters?
For the past 3.5 years, the president has been out there. He did a rope line, engaged with everyday people.
Who has the momentum? The anti-Biden Democrats or the pro-Biden Democrats?
The answer is Donald Trump. Because since the debate, the Democrats have lost every single day in the news cycle since then. And President Trump's played it smart, played it cool. Even he did the Hannity interview last night, but didn't make a ton of news. He will make news when he makes his vice presidential choice. And next week, you'll see a lot of the Republicans. I still think that the story is going to largely be about Biden. When it comes to the Democrats, this meeting was very interesting. It was like live on Newsroom, and these guys love a camera, but everybody went right by the cameras. Nobody wants to talk except for a few. And they basically say, everyone is fired up and we are on the same page. Okay, that's what some people said. Then other people came out and said, we aren't even in the same book. So they are not unified. I also think it's interesting that Hakeem Jeffries left through the back door because he didn't want to talk about it anymore. Because now he's realizing, okay, so if it's going to be him and he's not going to leave, then I guess we just have to deal with that. Plus, there's senators like Senator Patty Murray from Washington. She ripped the Wall Street Journal for its reporting a couple of weeks ago, saying that there are 45 sources saying that Joe Biden has cognitive decline. But now she's saying, we need to see improvement from Biden now. Senator Fetterman, that's the best friend you could ever have, right? If he's your friend and he is loyal and he is the only one who's willing to calmly take questions from the press. But somebody like a Bob Casey in Pennsylvania, he's running against Dave McCormick. He's the incumbent Democrat. I think that he's realizing, I guess I'm going to have to focus on my own race because he says he's one of Biden's best friends. He spent time with Biden campaigning, but when asked about things today, he said, I'm just focused on my own race. So the last thing I'd point out is that last night, the Congressional Black Caucus had this conference call, and Biden was on it. And I think it's pretty interesting, strategic on his part, right? what could possibly get the Congressional Black Caucus more excited at this point in the race if Biden's not staying in? It presumably would be Kamala Harris being able to step in and go for it. But again, Biden outflanked her on that.
Greg, it seems like everyone's out for their own political survival. Just kind of how things are on this show.
It is, especially with you around. Joe was supposed to speak at 5 p.m. Now it's 5:30. The late Joe Biden.
Oh,
you know,
don't bury him.
He's always late. And it's appropriate since we say it felt like a funeral. Where did anybody bring in casserole dish? Where are the bagpipes? We were told if you didn't vote for Joe Biden, the White House would be occupied by a power-mad tyrant who refuses to leave office even when everyone knows he's unfit, and a convicted felon would be running the country.
Yeah.
Turns out you got all that. If you voted for Joe Biden, you elected Joe and a crazy, bonkers, mad royal family who treat democracy like Commander treats Secret Service agents. If Joe doesn't drop out this week, he's proving that he's guilty of everything that they falsely accused Trump of, selfishly, insanely clinging to power. No wonder Joe looked orange. What's next? He's going to start a line of Biden steaks. This is starting to feel like Manuel Noriega. You know, pretty soon they're going to start playing Metallica really loud outside the White House. And they claim Joe Biden's working the phones. Come on, he couldn't work a jitterbug. That's the little phone with the big buttons. If I were a delegate, one of Joe's delegates, I'd be really pissed because you stole my vote. I gave it to you on false pretenses. Essentially, the voters were sold a lemon that once it got off the lot, it collapsed. And the White House is the car dealer. Too late, you bought it. That was Joe's letter. He just said, sorry, too late, I got your vote. No wonder it felt like a funeral in there. I mean, seriously, it's a funeral without a corpse. And I feel bad for Joe getting endorsed by the squad. That's the only people in his corner. It's like getting endorsed by Hamas.
Judge Janine, your thoughts?
You know, Biden is guilty in the court of public opinion. Everybody thinks there's something wrong with him. Nobody thinks he's going to be able to lead for the next 4 years. But in order to have a rebellion, you need to have a leader. And there is no leader. There's just this guy in the White House who yells and screams, and everybody is like, all of a sudden, the difference between last Friday and today is stunning. You had Jerry Nadler, who's now pulling back. You have a lot of Congress people who are like, yeah, maybe he's okay. I'm with Joe. Not that he's great, but I'm with Joe now. It's like they got the message. And, you know, you want to talk about totalitarian. I mean, that's who the Democrats are. This is our guy, and that's the end of it. And even though in one poll Kamala was ahead of Joe, they still don't believe that Kamala is capable of being the person to run against Donald Trump. And as Whoopi Goldberg said yesterday, they don't care how sick Joe Biden is. They don't care if he poops his pants or anything else. They just want him out there. And in the end, what you've got is a dishonesty that is so apparent. And this alleged transparency of the Democrats, it doesn't exist. Americans know it doesn't exist. And in the end, they're returning Joe. If he gets through this week, if he gets through the presser today at 5 or whenever, 5:30 now, and on Thursday after NATO, I mean, he said dumb things in the last couple of days. He said on Joe and Mika said he runs the world. And yet people are like, yeah, he's our guy. Well, that's the Democrats for you.
Harold, yesterday you seemed pretty confident that Joe's days were numbered. He might not make it through the weekend. Do you still feel the same way?
I'm not totally persuaded that he will be the nominee. I'll say this. It's interesting. I'd be curious to hear some other things that takeaways from these two meetings between the House members and Senate members. I'd be curious to know if anyone asked the question, over the last 12 days, has President Biden driven those voters in Wisconsin, where Tammy Baldwin's up for re-election, Michigan, Ohio, where Sherrod Brown is up for re-election, Michigan, where you have an open Senate race. The voters you need in those states, has he driven those voters closer to us or further from us? I don't know the answer to that. I have an opinion on it, but I don't think he's driven them closer to us. Two, the president, Biden, is one big mistake away from not being on the ticket. If we have another moment, whether it comes at some point today or another point before the nomination is given to him officially, it's not good because after he gets a nomination, all we can then do is hope and pray that he doesn't have a moment, because movement changing from a nominee after the convention is obviously very, very difficult. I do hope that the members in that meeting also who expressed concern about how difficult it may be to move on from the nominee before the convention and how messy it could be, understands, if you believe what President Biden has campaigned on, the existential threat posed by the opponent on the Republican side, how hard will it be then? Maybe we've reconciled ourselves to that. I imagine those in that room have, but I wonder about delegates and voters. I'm one that if this is what everybody wants to do at the end of the day, I'll be there. But I do hope those two questions were asked, and I hope those two questions were answered sufficiently and convincingly.
Well, that was just melancholy.
Thank you. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Happy birthday.
The big 5-0.
The big you son of a gun.
Yeah.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.